Vanilla Sky, 2001. 20 Weird Facts You Didn't Know. In the quiet before dawn, Times Square stood completely still, its blinding billboards flickering to no one, its streets hauntingly empty. For a fleeting moment, New York City felt like a dream you weren't sure you wanted to wake from. That's the strange power of Vanilla Sky, Cameron Crowe's 2001 psychological labyrinth where reality bends, love blurs into obsession, and the line between waking and sleeping dissolves into something far more unsettling. It wasn't just a movie, it was a puzzle box layered with philosophy, pop culture, and personal demons, disguised as a Hollywood romance. Behind the glossy shots and star-studded cast, this film hides choices so risky and details so obscure that even 2 decades later, fans are still arguing over what's real. From a once-in-a-lifetime filming opportunity in the heart of Manhattan, to hidden references only visible on freeze frame, to performances shaped by raw, unfiltered emotion, this is a film that rewards those willing to get lost inside it. These are 20 weird facts you didn't know about Vanilla Sky, each one a fragment of the dream that might just change the way you see the whole picture. Fact number 1. Times Square, the day New York stood still. It wasn't CGI. It wasn't a matte painting. That eerie opening sequence, Tom Cruise wandering through a deserted Times Square, was filmed for real. On a Sunday morning in late 2000, Paramount secured an almost impossible permit, the right to shut down one of the busiest intersections in the world. The crew had only a tiny window, from 5 o'clock to 8 a.m., to capture the shots before the city awoke. Traffic was rerouted, sidewalks were emptied, and the digital billboards kept running as if mocking the absence of life. The silence wasn't staged either. Crew members recall how the hum of neon lights and the faint echo of Cruz's footsteps filled the air like a scene from an apocalypse. Director Cameron Crowe resisted the temptation to digitally enhance the emptiness, insisting that the raw footage had a surreal quality no VFX could match. For many New Yorkers, the idea of Times Square without chaos felt more alien than any dream sequence. In the film, the moment works like a warning, the first visual clue that we've stepped out of reality and into something far stranger. And in a way it was. For 3 hours, the city that never sleeps actually closed its eyes. Fact number 2. The art inside the dream. Every frame of Vanilla Sky is littered with art paintings, photographs, and sculptures, chosen with almost surgical precision. Cameron Crowe and production designer Catherine Hardwicke pulled pieces from surrealists like René Magritte and Salvador Dalí to seed subconscious cues. The most striking? A poster of Monet's woman with a parasol in David's bedroom, its windswept figure mirroring Sophia in later dreamlike moments. Even the famous Dalí painting, The Hallucinogenic Toreador, makes a cameo, hinting at the film's obsession with perception versus reality. These weren't random props. Crowe has admitted that some art pieces were placed to prime the viewer for the film's ending, without giving it away. If you freeze certain frames, you'll spot images that seem to foreshadow entire scenes, almost as if David's world was designed by an artist who already knew his fate. Fact number 3. The Spanish origin story. Long before Vanilla Sky reached American theaters, its soul existed in a Spanish film, Abre, ojos, Open Your Eyes, 1997. Directed by Alejandro Amenabar. Tom Cruise first saw it at a small private screening and was so mesmerized that he acquired the remake rights within days. Rather than simply reproduce the original, Cameron Crowe reshaped the narrative into something uniquely his own, infusing it with a dreamier romantic core while keeping the unsettling ambiguity intact. The most intriguing link? Penélope Cruz, who plays Sophia in both versions. Her decision to reprise the role gave the remake an uncanny continuity, as if the same woman had somehow crossed between realities. For audiences who knew the original, her presence was a riddle in itself. Was this the same Sophia, or just another fragment of a recurring dream? The answer, like much of the film, depends on how you choose to wake up. Fact number 4. A soundtrack written into the film's DNA. Before a single frame of Vanilla Sky was shot, Cameron Crowe was already building its world out of music. A former rock journalist, he approached the soundtrack as a secret script running parallel to the screenplay. Songs weren't chosen to fit scenes, they were embedded into the fabric of the film from the start. Paul McCartney composed the title track after an intimate screening, capturing the story's blend of melancholy and wonder in a single melody. Icelandic band Sigur Rós provided atmospheric tracks that shaped the pacing of dreamlike sequences, while Jeff Buckley's Last Goodbye dictated the rhythm of one of the film's most emotional confrontations. On set, certain songs played through hidden speakers to guide the actors' performances, giving scenes an unspoken pulse. It's why the movie often feels like a memory set to music. You're not just watching images. You're hearing the emotional architecture that built them. Fact number 5. The mask that spoke without words. David Ames's pale, expressionless mask is more than a striking visual. It's a character in its own right. Rather than treat it as a simple prop, Tom Cruise wore the mask for entire shooting days, even during moments when the camera wouldn't see it. The effect was immediate and unsettling. Cast members began to change their behavior around him. Some avoided his gaze entirely. Others lowered their voices, as if speaking to someone deeply wounded. For Cruz, the mask became a psychological anchor, a constant reminder of David's fractured identity and the emotional walls he'd built. Cameron Crowe encouraged this method, believing the quiet discomfort it created would bleed naturally into the performances. Watching the film, you can feel that tension, the sense that you're not just looking at a face, but at everything it's hiding. Fact number 6. The rooftop in a single breath. Near the film's end, David stands at the lip of a skyscraper, the city stretching endlessly below. It's a moment thick with dread and release, and it was captured in one unbroken take. Cameron Crowe refused to stitch it together in the edit, believing the tension of a continuous shot would make the audience feel as if they were teetering there with him. Tom Cruise, harnessed but only inches from the real drop, insisted on performing it himself. The wind was real, the vertigo was real, and the quiet between his breaths was real. The camera circled him slowly, as though afraid to get too close, while the crew held theirs, knowing they had only minutes before the light shifted and the magic was gone. What ended up on screen isn't just a stunt. It's a heartbeat suspended over the city, one you can still feel long after the credits roll. Fact number 7. The frozen frame clues. Hidden inside Vanilla Sky are images you'll never notice in real time, unless you pause at exactly the right moment. Cameron Crowe, fascinated by subliminal storytelling, slipped in single-frame inserts, distorted photographs, and fleeting symbols that last less than a blink. Some are callbacks to earlier scenes. Others are lifted from works of art or film history. One of the most famous is a split-second glimpse of a lucid dream logo, foreshadowing the film's late reveal. Crowe has admitted that these weren't meant to be gotcha Easter eggs, but rather subconscious nudges, things your mind registers without fully understanding, adding to the film's unsettling dream logic. For fans who dig frame by frame, each discovery feels like a secret note from the director, reminding you that in David's world, nothing you see is truly accidental. Fact 8. Penélope Cruz double life. For Penelope Cruz, Vanilla Sky wasn't just another Hollywood role, it was a strange déjà vu. 4 years earlier, she had played Sofia in the original Spanish film Abre, ojos, shaping the character's warmth and mystery from the ground up. Returning to the same role in an American remake meant slipping back into a skin she already knew, but in a world that felt entirely different. Cameron Crowe encouraged her to change nothing about Sofia's essence, allowing her performance to act like a thread connecting two separate realities. For audiences unaware of the original, Cruz's presence simply radiated authenticity. But for those who had seen both films, it was disorienting, like meeting the same person in two dreams that tell different stories. Her eyes, her voice, even her pauses carried an unshakable sense that she remembered more than the script ever revealed. Fact number 9. The script hidden in a photograph. One of Vanilla Sky's most quietly brilliant moments hides in plain sight, a photograph on David's bedside table. To most viewers, it's just a casual snapshot, but freeze the frame and you'll see something more. The image mirrors a later scene almost exactly, down to the position of the hands and the angle of the light. Cameron Crowe has hinted that these visual echoes were deliberate, designed to make the audience feel an unplaceable sense of déjà vu. In the film's dream logic, this repetition becomes a clue, suggesting David's reality has been constructed from fragments of memory and fantasy. The photograph itself was staged months before filming began, shot on location with the same lighting setup later used for its real counterpart. It's a tiny detail you could watch a dozen times and miss, but once you notice it, the whole story feels like it's been hiding in the corners all along. Fact number 10. The improvised elevator confession. In the tense elevator scene near the film's climax, David finally confronts the truth, or at least the version of it he's ready to accept. What most viewers don't know is that part of his dialogue wasn't in the original script. Cameron Crowe, sensing that the scene needed something raw and unpolished, asked Tom Cruise to stay in character and simply talk his way to the truth. What followed was a blend of scripted beats and improvised emotion, with Cruz weaving in fragmented thoughts, hesitations, and abrupt tonal shifts that made David's unraveling feel painfully real. Penélope Cruz, caught off guard by some of his lines, responded with genuine surprise reactions Crowe kept in the final cut. The result is a moment that feels less like acting and more like eavesdropping on someone's final attempt to make sense of their own story. Fact number 11. The Times Square illusion that almost failed. Shutting down Times Square was already a logistical miracle, but keeping it empty was another story. Even at dawn on a Sunday, the area drew curious onlookers and stray pedestrians. The crew stationed production assistants at every intersection to politely redirect foot traffic, but one or two figures still slipped into the background during early takes. Rather than scrap the footage, Cameron Crowe worked with his editor to blend shots so seamlessly that the intrusions vanished. In some cases, moving billboards and flashing ads were subtly altered in post-production to mask continuity errors. The eerie silence, however, was untouched. No sound design tricks, no artificial reverb. What you hear is the real hum of a city on pause, a sound so unnerving that crew members later described it as wrong in a way you couldn't explain. Without those early morning compromises, the film's most haunting visual might have been impossible. Fact number 12. The hidden Beatles thread. Cameron Crowe has never hidden his love for the Beatles, but in Vanilla Sky, their influence runs deeper than most viewers realize. The film's title itself comes from a lyric in Paul McCartney's song Vanilla Sky, written specifically for the movie after a private screening with Crowe and Tom Cruise. Beyond that, subtle nods to the band are woven into the set design and soundtrack choices. A Beatles poster glimpsed in David's apartment, a fleeting background melody in a party scene, even a character's offhand remark that echoes a famous Lennon quote. Crowe has said these touches were like little handshakes for fans who knew where to look, adding a layer of personal nostalgia to a story already tangled in memory and dream. For some, these references are just playful Easter eggs. For others, they suggest that David's dream world is stitched together from the cultural artifacts most meaningful to him, music included. Fact number 13. The freeze frame that reveals the ending. Buried in the film's early moments is a blink and you'll miss it image that, in hindsight, gives away the entire twist. During a brief party montage, the camera drifts past a television screen playing what seems like random footage, a documentary snippet about lucid dreaming. Most viewers' eyes are pulled toward the actors in the foreground, but if you freeze the frame, the talking head on screen is explaining the concept of self-directed narrative inside dreams. Cameron Crowe confirmed years later that this was intentional, a breadcrumb for the most attentive audience members. By planting the truth in plain sight, he turned the film into a psychological experiment. How much of the truth can you hide by simply letting people look somewhere else? It's a reminder that in Vanilla Sky, the answer to the mystery is always there, you just don't see it until you've already lived it. Fact number 14. The photograph that wasn't in the script. One of the most haunting props in Vanilla Sky, a photograph of David and Sophia smiling under a perfect blue sky, was never in the original script. It appeared after a spontaneous idea from Cameron Crowe, who asked the actors to spend a day together off-set, walking around New York with a small film camera. No lines, no direction, just real moments captured on film. From that roll of candid shots, one image stood out. A frozen instant of intimacy so natural it felt stolen from a memory. Crowe had it framed and placed in David's apartment without telling the crew or the actors until the scene was shot. The moment on screen, when David glances at it, carries an authenticity that no staged photo could fake. In a film obsessed with the slippery nature of reality, this unscripted memento became the most real thing in the story. Fact number 15. The face in the crowd. During one of the bustling party sequences, a seemingly random extra catches the camera for just a second, a man in a dark suit, standing alone, watching David with an expression that's impossible to read. He's never acknowledged in the dialogue, never appears again, and isn't listed in the credits. Some fans dismissed it as a coincidence, but others swore it was intentional, part of the film's breadcrumb trail suggesting that David's world is being observed, maybe even manipulated. When asked, Cameron Crowe gave a cryptic answer: "Sometimes the people in our dreams aren't strangers." Whether the man was a planted character or simply a background performer who slipped into cinematic legend, his brief appearance lingers one more shadow in a film where nothing in the frame feels entirely accidental. Fact number 16. The deleted scene that changes everything. Hidden deep in the film's deleted scenes is a moment that radically alters how you read the story. In it, David visits an art gallery and stops in front of a surreal painting of a man falling through clouds, a visual that eerily mirrors the film's final rooftop sequence. In their conversation, the gallery owner casually mentions the work was commissioned by a client who wanted to dream forever. Cameron Crowe cut the scene for pacing, but its implications are huge. It suggests David's fate might have been foreshadowed, not just in his subconscious, but in the literal world around him. The scene was fully shot, scored, and edited, only to vanish into the DVD extras. For those who've seen it, the film's ending feels less ambiguous and more like the inevitable conclusion of a story that had been quietly telling you the truth all along. Fact number 17. The real-life echo in Tom Cruise's performance. While Vanilla Sky is steeped in surrealism, some of its most affecting moments came from a very real place. During production, Tom Cruise was navigating a period of intense public scrutiny and personal change. Cameron Crowe, aware of this, encouraged him to let fragments of his real life bleed into David Ames's unraveling. In certain scenes, particularly moments of isolation, Cruise's expressions aren't the polished beats of an actor hitting his mark, but flashes of genuine vulnerability. Crew members noticed that between takes, he would often stay silent, looking out over the set as if lost in thought, before snapping back into the scene. This blurring of performance and personal truth gave David's breakdown a rawness that no script could manufacture. Watching closely, you can almost sense when Cruz stops acting and starts confessing without ever saying a word. Fact number 18. The one prop that tied every reality together. Among the film's many surreal layers, one object quietly threads its way through multiple realities: a simple coffee mug with a faded blue stripe. It appears in David's penthouse, in Sophia's apartment, at the Life Extension offices, and even barely visible on a rooftop ledge in the final act. Cameron Crowe has never explained its presence, but prop supervisors confirmed it was a deliberate placement. The mug was never mentioned in the script, yet its repeated appearances act like a totem, something constant in a world where everything else shifts. Some fans interpret it as a subconscious anchor for David's mind, a small detail holding the dream together. Others see it as a wink from the filmmakers, a challenge to spot the one thing that never changes, even as the entire reality bends around it. Fact number 19. The ending we almost got. Before settling on the film's now famous rooftop climax, Cameron Crowe experimented with a radically different ending. In early drafts, David's awakening was meant to take place in a sterile, futuristic facility, rows of sleeping pods, humming machinery, and clinical technicians monitoring brain activity. Instead of a leap into the unknown, David would quietly open his eyes in the real world, greeted by a life extension counselor explaining the decades he'd spent in suspension. The scene was fully storyboarded, with concept art showing a colder, more definitive resolution. But Crowe felt it robbed the audience of the emotional freefall that defines the final cut. By choosing the rooftop over the lab, he traded certainty for ambiguity, forcing viewers to decide for themselves whether David was waking up or simply stepping into another dream. Fact number 20. The title hidden in the sky. The phrase Vanilla Sky isn't just poetic, it's literally in the film. During a pivotal scene between David and Sophia, the The sky behind them takes on soft pastel streaks that mimic a painting by Claude Monet, San Giorgio Maggiore, at dusk. Cameron Crowe has said this visual was the seed for the title, "Skies so delicate and unreal they feel painted by memory." To achieve it, the crew filmed during a rare magic hour when the light over Manhattan matched Monet's palette almost exactly, then enhanced it subtly in post-production. The moment passes quickly, but once you know what to look for, it reframes the entire film, reminding you that David's world is built like art, crafted for beauty even in its darkest turns. In a story obsessed with the blurred edges of reality, the sky itself becomes a quiet confession that what you're seeing was never meant to last. Bonus fact: the line that was never in the script. Near the very end, just before David makes his choice, Sophia whispers, "I'll see you in another life, when we are both cats." It's such an odd, intimate line that it feels loaded with hidden meaning, and it wasn't in the original screenplay. Penélope Cruz improvised it on set, pulling from a Spanish idiom she'd grown up with, meant to express the hope of meeting someone again in another existence. Cameron Crowe loved the take so much he kept it, believing it captured the film's delicate balance of tenderness and absurdity. For viewers, the line lands like a final breadcrumb, playful yet haunting, hinting that even endings might just be doorways to another dream. It's a moment that slips past logic and lands squarely in the heart, the kind of unscripted magic that Vanilla Sky thrives on. If you've made it this far, you've walked the blurred line between waking and dreaming, truth and illusion, just like David Ames. Now it's your turn to step off the edge. Which of these 20 facts changed the way you see Vanilla Sky? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share your own theories, and tell us which film you want us to unravel next. And if you want more hidden stories and cinematic secrets, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because the next world we build might be even stranger than this one.